As the Brexit Northern Ireland Protocol negotiations carry on, people in Northern Ireland and the rest of the kingdom continue to be betrayed by the establishment. Now, Lord David Frost has come out to make an intervention on the issue. Quite interesting what Rishi Sunak's government are doing. They're just not listening to anybody, really. Not just in terms of DUP or the pro-Brexiteers in Northern Ireland, but the actual business people who want to trade between the rest of the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland, because NI is still part of the European Union, essentially, when it comes to these issues, and we don't really have full Brexit. Now, they want to renegotiate the deal. Lord David Frost, who was a negotiator, who actually, the left-wing Ramona media did a really good job at spinning the message when the deal was done. They put all the responsibility on Frost, as if he was coming up with the negotiating positions. He was basically just taking the orders from Number 10 Downing Street, and he was challenging Number 10 even at the time. He doesn't come up with the positions himself when he was doing the job, so it wasn't his deal. He was just a negotiator. But so he comes out now to talk about and make an intervention on the current talks. It's quite fascinating. Let's go through what Frost has been saying. He basically said yesterday that I've not heard anything authoritative about the possible deal on the NI protocol from anyone in the government. Wow, okay. Anyone who does may find it useful to have the following questions and tests in mind as they assess what they are told. So he knows what he's talking about, so let's see what he says. The technicalities that follow are important. We have learned we can't rely on EU commitments that aren't tied down or rest on good faith, basically, or the EU is acting responsibly. We can't really rely on that, basically. They need to be legally clear and enforceable. If they aren't, we will be back here again before too long. That's the position that we always had. Yet, people in government, from Theresa May's government to Boris Johnson's government, continue to ignore it. You cannot trust the European Union. They do not want to be our friends. So you have to force them legally. Why do we even want to be their friends? Well, that's a very good question. Anyway, David Frost says, 1. First, on goods movements from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. We are told that EU law has been disapplied. That is a very sweeping and, on the fence of it, surprising statement. It's a very good point. Number 1. What does this mean? Has EU law been removed in a legally binding way, so goods movements are now covered by UK law? Or is it more nebulous, i.e. declaration? EU agreement not to enforce in certain circs or similar. Do the protocol or EU laws actually change? So basically, that means they are claiming that, well, yeah, it doesn't really, the EU laws no longer apply to this. That's what we've been told. But as Frost says, well, what does that actually mean? You mean actually being legally removed? Or is it some sort of handshake agreement? Or is it some sort of, well, limited applying in terms of certain goods and certain trade? You need to be clear. You can't just pretend. You can't go to the media. If Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt do this, they could easily do it. Say, yeah, doesn't apply anymore. EU law's gone. But it hasn't. You're lying to us. 2. Has EU law been disapplied for the purposes of checks only or for all processes end to end? For example, any trusted trader scheme, paperwork, etc. It is, of course, the processes for Great British firms that are a big part of the problem. Absolutely spot on. And on the third point, does it mean that all UK standard goods are in future guaranteed exportable to Northern Ireland for free circulation in NI? Or does the checks and process suspension only apply if the goods meet EU standards? It's all complicated, but again, to translate, the whole point was, for those who haven't really been following it, the reason Northern Ireland is still part of the EU is because they are paranoid, well, that's their line, that, well, if goods come between and trade between, for example, England and Northern Ireland, that's okay. But how do we know that what if that good from England goes to Northern Ireland and then crosses the border, go to the Republic of Ireland, because there's no border? So EU says, we have to check your standards. Do you not realize? Not only we haven't changed our standards since we were an EU member, So we have the exact same standards. In fact, considering we were behind some of the standards that it was written for the EU, we were behind it. We have higher standards than the European Union. So their position that, well, we're not sure if the UK goods will be meeting our standards, that is an absolute lie. That's not why they're worried. It's just because they want to protect their own protectionist racket. Number 2, on EU law and the democratic deficit. So that's the imposition of goods, single market, VAT, and state aid rules on NI without consent. Do all the existing and future EU laws remain in force in Northern Ireland? Or is the EU law, just generally speaking, removed in any way? And that is a key point. One is the actual EU laws. Secondly, is the independent referee, which is the European Court of Justice. So independent. Why is the ECJ telling us what to do? That's the main question. So, if Northern Ireland institutions are given any involvement in rulemaking, is it genuine of the ability to block or change? Or is it cosmetic? So, right to be consulted only. And the next point is, does the UK government get the legally assured right to change VAT rates in Northern Ireland or to set up free ports like in Great Britain? Do we have the freedom to make our own policies in Northern Ireland like what we do with the rest of the kingdom? That's the point. But currently, you're not allowed to because Northern Ireland, that part, has to follow EU vision and direction. And that has to change as well. So we keep, on this channel, we keep ranting about ECJ. We keep ranting about the trading arrangements. But there's more to it when it comes to Northern Ireland Protocol. As David Frost said, one of these is the issues with our own policies in Northern Ireland. So, has the EU agreed any restrictions on user infraction procedures ending in the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, either in a legally binding way or as a political commitment? So that's again, it goes back to the European Court of Justice. Have any changes been made to the Article 18 consent mechanism under which Stormont has the right to scrap the protocol in 2024, with the UK and EU replacing it with something else? Is the UK government committed to support the protocol remaining in place? That reminds us, don't forget, part of the Brexit agreement also allowed a period of time every few years, unanimously, to make sure that you can just remove the whole thing. And it's coming up. So not too long. Even if not now, 2024 is going to be an interesting date. And finally, has the UK made any commitment to withdraw or freeze the protocol bill? Do any provisions of the New Deal change or collapse if the protocol bill remains in play or is ever brought forward again? Well, we don't really know exactly what's going to happen with the bill in general. Lord Frost says, I don't say all these tests must be satisfied for a deal to be worth considering, but if most aren't, or there is a lot of ambiguity on the crucial ones, the deal won't change much in real life, whatever the spin put on it. Absolutely spot on. They are going to try their best to put a spin on it. Firstly, they have to come up with some sort of agreement, which we don't even want. And it's going to be a lose-lose sort of situation. So they're going to come up and spin it. The European Union are going to go to Brussels and say, we won. Rishi Sunak is going to come to London and say, we won. And everybody loses. That's basically a translation of the whole situation. I just wanted to give you guys a detailed update on the Northern Ireland negotiations, because again, you're not going to get any of this in the mainstream media. We're going to keep you guys posted on the technicalities and everything else that happens all around us. So thank you so much for supporting this channel and independent media. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.